السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. وبعد, we give praise and we give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him for all His mercies and favors, and we give Him thanks for the blessings for which He has showered us, and we seek His mercy and His forgiveness and His guidance. We thank Him for bringing us together once again to reflect and to study His Word. We are still Surah Yusuf, which is Surah 12. We reached up to Ayah 32 in our last session, so inshallah we'll continue from Ayah 33 of Surah Yusuf. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين. فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم. ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين. ودخل معه السجن فتيان قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. The English translation reads, he said, "O my Lord, prison is dearer to me than that which they invite me to. Unless you turn away their plot from me, I will feel inclined towards them and be one of the Jahilin, the ignorant ones." So his Lord answered his invocation and turned away from him their plot. Verily, he is the all-hearer, the all-knower. Then it occurred to them after they had seen the proofs to imprison him for a time. And they entered with him 2 young men in prison. One of them said, "Verily, I saw myself in a dream pressing wine." The other said, "Verily, I saw myself in a dream carrying out bread on my head, and birds were eating thereof." They said, "Inform us of the interpretation of this. Verily, we see you are of the Muhsinin." As the story continues, the narration continues of the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. As just to reconnect, remember that the wife of the Aziz sought to seduce him and he refused. And she made accusations against him, false accusations against him. But the people of the city, the elite women of the society, they started talking. They started talking, gossiping about her and what she did. Once the word reached out to them, they started to gossip. And so she wanted to get back at them because she knows what her situation was and what she was dealing with. And so she wants to get back at them, right? Because the people of the city didn't see Yusuf. They didn't know him. He was at home in the house. He didn't go out. So they didn't know, right? But she knew, right? This strong, handsome young man. And she knew. So she invited them to a tea party at the house, and she gave them cushions to recline on and set it up nice for them to come and relax and to have tea with her, as though she's having a nice little banquet for them. And when they were relaxed, she gave them fruit, and she gave them a knife, gift fruit that you need to cut with a knife, and she gave each one of them a knife to cut their fruit. And when they're busy cutting the fruit, at this time she had Yusuf hidden away. She told him, now go out there. So he came out in front of them, and when they saw Yusuf, when Yusuf appeared in the hall where they were, they just freaked out. All the women freaked out. Girlfriend, what kind of woman is this? What kind of person is this? What kind of person is this? This is not a human being. Ma hada bashar. This is akbarna. You know, they praised Allah and they said, oh my God, what kind of person is this? This is not a human being. In hada illa malakun kareem. This must surely be an angel. And in the admiration for Yusuf, and the surprise and the admiration they had at that moment, they weren't paying attention, so they were not cutting, rather than cutting the fruit, they cut in their hands. So when this happened, then she spoke up and she says, yes, this is what you blaming me about. This is what you're carrying on about. You see what happened to you? This is what it's all about. And so the women understood her situation as women. Right? They can see that, why she did what she did. And because all of them would have done it. Right? All of them would have done it. And so they identified with her. So she then confessed to them. She says, yes, I did seek to seduce him, but he refused. He refused. But then she threatened him. She says, but if he doesn't do what I tell him, I'm going to lock him up. I'll make sure he gets a more severe punishment. So when Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam saw the great lengths that she, the wife of the Aziz, they said her name was Zulika, that saw the great lengths that she would go to and that she was willing to go to seduce them. Because first of all, she came after him, he ran away from her, she still pursued him, and then she made false accusations against him to her husband. And then when people spend the society women start to criticize her and so on and gossip about her, she shamed them all. Right? She calls them, she shamed them all. And so that she get them over on her side, right? To bring them over to her side. And when all this is, after all this is being exposed, she now is still doubling down on her plot. If he don't do what I said, they used to none. I gotta make sure he go to jail. So here she's doubling down on her plot to get Yusuf. She's doubling down. So when Yusuf see all of this, at this point, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he realized this one is bigger than me. Right? This one is bigger than me. I'm only a human being. Right? I'm a human being, you know. And so at this point, Yusuf alayhi salam, he turns to Allah. At this point, he turns because he got the wife of the Aziz, in whose house he lives, and then he got all the society women who are after him. So here, I mean, this is too much. He's only a man. All right? This is too much for him to just depend on his own devices. Right? To depend on his own devices against that bulwark of seduction. And so he, at this point, because Yusuf alayhi salam, you know, we have to always bear in mind that Yusuf alayhi salatu salam was a young, extremely handsome man. Right? There's this magnet that can, somebody can come after him. Right? Someone of them can come. Even that the wife of the Aziz don't come, one of them going to come after him. So he's a young, handsome a man full of virility. How you know? They're going to come after him. And he understands this. And at the same time, she is a beautiful woman. Right? I said that Zulka was a very beautiful woman. She's a beautiful woman. And not only that, but she's a person of, she's wealthy. Right? Being the wife of the Aziz, she's a wealthy woman. And she has positional rank in the society. And then it's not just the rank and file women of the city that was coming after him, it was the society women. Alright? It's the society women, not just the rank and file of the city, it's the society women who hangs out with the Aziz wife, her friends. They're the ones coming after her. So they're also in the same status that she's in, of position and status there. And so all of them is coming after him, right? So he know, look, I mean, this is too much for me to handle. And so he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beseeching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help him, to save him from, for not only from their plots, but to save him from himself. Notice this, he's not just asking Allah to protect him from their plots, but also protect me from my own devices, because look, I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself around these women. Right? I don't trust myself around them. Right? Not he wants to do anything wrong, no, he just don't trust himself. And this is one of the things that we should always, you know, sometimes we feel so arrogant in ourselves. Yes, man, you know, I mean, about things. And we depend on our own devices, and Shaitan use it as an opportunity to suck us in. Alright? So we got to be also know of our strength and our weaknesses, and we should always acknowledge that, so we know when we need to reinforce, we need reinforcements. Right? As they know, as I said, you should always know when to pack up. You should always know to pack up, because when you don't know to pack up, then you can get in trouble. Right? You got to know when to back down. You got to know when to turn away. You got to, if you don't know, you can always get in trouble. Right? Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, you know, he understood this, because he's a human being. This is the human situation. The human situation. We should always be cognizant of the human situation. That's how Allah made us like that. So here he knows what is going on, and so he's asking Allah to save him from himself and from the cunning of these cunning plots of these women. Right? From himself and the cunning plots of these women. And so he cried out to his Lord. He cried out to his Lord. Rabbi Sejnu ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'uni. He says, oh my Lord, prison is more dear to me than that to which they invite me. Right? This sinful stuff that they invite me to come and sleep with them. Right? And if you do not save me. إِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنْ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِ. If you don't save me from this cunning plot of theirs, I might lean towards it. I might incline towards them. I might fall, they might catch me in their trap. And so he acknowledges this, as he does later in the surah, right? He is calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help him out of this situation that he is in with them because he turned to Allah. If left his own devices, he's saying, he might incline or lean towards them. Not because he wants something to happen, not because he wants to be, he does not want to give in to the evil desires. He doesn't want to give in, right? But he is a human being and he's at his wit's end on how to get away because this one he's in the human house, right? And the woman run him down all of this, if a husband and show up at the door, Allah knows what will happen. She's after him, she's determined to get him. And he's living in a house. So now, he's in a very awkward situation, right? And so, he doesn't want to commit sin because when you give in to evil desires or give in to the desires, which is what the shaitan comes after. He pokes your desires. He stalks your desires, right? And as such, in a state of weakness, you wind up doing stuff, right? Because this is the actions of ignorant. This is the actions of ignorant, because the ignorant ones follows the desires, right? The ignorant ones follows the desires without thinking, do whatever they want. And make you feel good, do it, as they say. So they enjoy, this giving to desires and do whatever they want. Right? That is the ignorant people. Right? Those who are ignorant. And so ignorance is not from lack of knowledge only. Ignorance is also from not understanding, giving in to desires, what happens. And so this ignorance is not just mental, it is also spiritual. It is not just only mental, it is spiritual ignorance. And so he says, if I don't, then I will wind up just like them in that state. I will wind up just like in that state, out in the desert with the water. And so he doesn't want this. And so he turns to his Lord. He turns to his Lord. And this is, we should always know, whenever we turn to Allah. Because only Allah has the power. And so he turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he calls out and asks for help. Allah, help me out of this situation. Oh Allah, help me out of this situation. I don't want to fall into this stuff, but I can't do it by myself. I can't do, I'm not able to do it on my own. I need you to help me. And so he calls on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah responds. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. So his Lord responded to his dua. Allah responded, his Lord responded or answered his invocation. Because this was an invocation. It was not just a simple supplication, it was an invocation. He is invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help me out. I need some help. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to him, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always responds to the cry of his servants when he calls. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي. Allah says. And your Lord says, or your Lord declares, call upon me, invoke me, supplicate to me. Astajib lakum. And if you do so, I will respond to you. If you respond, if you call on me and you vote, I will respond. This is a firm commitment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you should, when you call on Allah, that you should call on Allah and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you call on Allah, Allah will respond to you. Yeah? That Allah will respond to you. And so he cried to his servant, and Allah responds as he always does. Because Allah always responds. Ud'uni, call on me, invoke me, astajib lakum. I will respond to you. This is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah la yukhliful mi'ad. Allah don't break promises. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not of Allah's nature and Allah's way that he break promises. So Allah does not break promises. Allah always keeps the promise, and Allah will always, Allah says, لَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We have made it incumbent on ourselves to always help the believers. We've made it incumbent on ourselves to always help the believers. Why then don't the believers always call on Allah? Why don't we always turn to Allah? We always go to everybody else. We go to this one, that one, that one. No, go to Allah first and second and last. You go to Allah and Allah will direct your situation. Allah will take care of your situation. Because we have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to the cries of servants. His supplication is something as Rasulullah tells in the hadith, ad-du'a mustajab. Ad-du'a mustajab. The supplication is always answered. The supplication of the servant is always answered. That is a very profound statement for people to ponder and reflect upon. That if we know that dua, the supplication of the servant is always responded to, then we should not at any point have any sense of despondency about calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not have no sense of despondency or doubt or hesitation to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know we can respond. And this is why it's important that, we should always, when we call, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in that hadith, he says, Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Ud'u Allah, invoke Allah, supplicate to Allah, make dua to Allah, and you are convinced of his response. SubhanAllah. You are convinced. وَأَنْتُمْ مُوقِنُونَ بِالْإِجَابَةِ. You are convinced of his response to you. So it's not like, I'm not sure whether you can answer. I don't know if Allah will help me. No! You should never go to Allah with this. Because nothing is azal Allah. Nothing is greater than Allah. Nothing is more overwhelming. Nothing is overwhelming for Allah. Nothing is beyond Allah's capacity and ability and power. He can do anything. He's all powerful. He's almighty. That's why he is God. That's why he's Allah. That's why we worship him. That's why we turn to him. Because he has all power. He can do anything. His creative genius is that when he wishes a thing, he just says be, and it exists. So it means that Allah's creative power is by his command. Allah. He commands things into existence. He commands it into existence. That is his power. No one else possesses that kind of power. That's why he is Allah. He alone is Allah. No one else is Allah but him. No one else has that position, that status. This is why we shouldn't worship no one besides him. This is why we should not associate any partners. Don't matter how great somebody is. Don't matter how much power that they have. Don't matter what miraculous works they can do. They are nothing comparison to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because whatever they got it from Allah. Whatever they got it from Allah. So why you can go to somebody for a second stuff when you can go directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get it for yourself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy.
Ameen.
Indeed. So you turn to Allah because He knows. He knows, and it's more for us to know that. We turn to Allah and Allah will respond. And Allah responded and increased him in immunity against sin. He increases in immunity. As we mentioned last time, that all the prophets are ma'asum. Right? They are ma'asum. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the time of the dua of Yusuf alayhi salam, He increases in his immunity so that he will not lean. So it's a twofold dua that he made. Oh Allah, save me from myself. And save me from them. La takilni ila nafsi. Don't let me up to my own devices, oh Allah. And protect me from them. So it's a twofold dua that he's made. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers it in two ways. He answered firstly, He gave him the immunity. He increased his immunity against sin. So he will not lean to them at all. No matter what they can come at him with, he ain't going to give in. So Allah increases in immunity, his isma, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala diverted their plots from him. Allah diverted their plotting and cunningness from him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, the lessons, there's some serious lessons to be learned from this. There's some serious lessons to be learned from this. That we should always turn to Allah when in need. And that's what is meant when we say, Iyaka na'budu wa
Iyaka
nasta'in. That's Tawheed. That is Tawheed. Ibadatullah. Worshiping Allah. Turning to Allah. Depending on Allah. So people, because this is where people go astray. They might call on Allah. You ask him, Man khalaqa as-samawati wal ardi yaquluna Allah. You ask him, who created the heavens and everything? They say Allah. Man anzala min as-samai ma'an fayuhyi al-arda ba'da mawtiha yaquluna Allah. Who sent down the rain from the sky and caused the dead earth to come out? Listen, yes, Allah. Abi Talib, when Abraha showed up, right? When Abraha showed up with his big elephants and a big army to destroy the Kaaba, what was his response? Look, that house there have a Lord. He can protect it. I'm not interested in that. I'm not concerned with that. I'm not worried with the Kaaba. Because when Abraha came, his army went and grabbed all the sheep and animals of Abu Talib. So Abu Talib, going to Abraha to get his stuff back. When Abraha, somebody says that Abu Talib was a very stately, charismatic looking person. He was a very stately, charismatic looking person. And so when Abraha saw him, he was impressed with him. Oh, this is the leader of the people from Mecca. Okay, the leader of Mecca. He was impressed with till he kept telling him, come sit next to me here. So he put him on his seat that when he said he put him to sit next to him. Because he think he come now to negotiate over the Kaaba. So after the pleasantries, he says, when you come, he says, I came here to talk to you about my animals. Your people come and take on your first come and take on my animals, and I want them back. You know, and Abraham became incensed because he felt insulted. He says, "What? I come here to destroy the Kaaba, and you come to ask me about a few sheep or stuff like that." And this is when he said to him, "Look, that house has an owner. That house, I don't own it. That house has its owner. He can defend it. He can defend it. Right? Or he will defend it. Because that's his house. But them sheep and stuff, them is mine." So here, I mean, it shows they understood. And there's most people today will acknowledge. But whenever you know, they now with the praise and worship and stuff, they're still going to worship somebody else. They still worship somebody else. You know, I mean, like you see many of our neighbors and brothers, fellow men in our community, you know, you find that they'll call on Almighty God Allah and ask for help. "Oh my God, help me with this. Oh God, help me." You know, and they call it because they are sincere at that moment. Because they know at that moment no one can help them, because very often we only turn to Allah when we are in need, in dire straits. We know there's no one else can help us out of this situation, and we become absolutely sincere because we want help. "Oh God, if you help me get over this, if you get me out of this," you know what I mean? And they're calling on God. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of their sincerity in dua, because Allah says, if you call on me sincerely, I can respond. Allah responds to them. It has nothing to do with whether you believe or not. It has nothing to do with whether you believe it. So even the disbeliever, and so when he calls on Allah sincerely, Allah gets to respond to him. Because that's Allah. Allah said that. Right? That's who Allah is. He responds to sincere dua. Right? Because sincere dua is ibadah. Ad-dua huwa al-ibadah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in hadith. Dua is sincere ibadah. It's sincere worship. Right? Dua is worship. Right? That's why he says, "Inna alladhina yastakbiruna an ibadati sayadkhuluna jahannama dakhirin." Anyone who is feel too proud to worship, and that is to call on me and make dua, he will enter into the hellfire humiliated. You know, so the calling on Allah is so crucial. It's so important. So people will do it when they're in trouble, when they have need, dire straits. They're calling Allah, "Please help me out of this situation. Well, if you help me out of this, I'll do this and I'm going to make nothing." Right? That's what you call that, nothing. Right? Vows or something like a vow, huh? Nothing, another is vow. You know, that they make it, you know. Well, I mean, "Oh God, if you help me out of this, I'm going to be a good person. If you help me out of this, I'll do this. If you help me out of that." And they try to make vow to Allah to help them out. If you get me past this exam, if you get me get this promotion, if you get me get this job, if you get me get this house, if you get me this, and they make the sincere dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers. Why? Because Allah is the one who answers dua. He's the one who answers dua. So when you call sincerely. The unfortunate thing is, however, is once the people achieve what they want, Allah gives it to them, He answers it, He gives it to them, then they don't thank Allah, they forget about Allah. I work hard for this. Huh? I work hard for this. You know, I'm a self-made man or woman. I did this, I did that, I did the next. And they give praise to themselves or to thank somebody else. Thank you, Jesus, for that. You understand? They go, I mean, it is strange. It is strange, but we see this all the time. This is how we do it. We go sincerely to Allah because we want, because we need, we in trouble, we in dire straits. But when it finished, we don't turn and say, oh God, thank you. Just in the same way of sincerity, when you were calling and begging, you should be sincere now again and says, Almighty God, thank you. Almighty God, you've been so good to me. Thank you for helping me out. This is what we're supposed to do. But we don't do it. We always fall into something else. May Allah make it easy for us.
Amen.
So turning to Allah is crucial. And then sincerely, once you make dua and you call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you should sincerely put your trust and dependence on Him. Tawakkul alayh. Put your trust and dependence on Allah. You trust Him because He says He can respond. Astajib lakum. I will respond to you. So put your trust on Him. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam knows that he can turn to his Lord and his Lord will help him out, and he turned to his Lord in the call. And this was the status of the prophets. Alayhi salatu wasalam. This was the status of the prophets. That was the level of the prophets. The prophets know they can depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they put their trust on Him. So anytime that they were in their back against the wall, they call out, oh Allah, oh my Lord. And Allah responds to them. Because they know. They know. So when Yusuf is in a situation, he calls on Allah. When Ibrahim is in a situation, he calls on Allah. When Musa is in a situation, he calls on Allah. When the Prophet Muhammad he calls on Allah. When Isa he calls on Allah. He calls on Allah. This is part of the Christian teachings. They said that when he knew of the plot to assassinate him, because after they failed, you know, the leaders failed in getting him executed by the state. After what bring false charges against him of treason. And they brought false charges of treason because the punishment for treason is death. The punishment for treason is death. So that is why they brought that charge against him. Right? Because they wanted him to be executed. And so when they failed at that, because there was no evidence, it was all false evidence that they put forward. And he stood up and defended himself against them. He defended himself right before the court. And so Pilate says, look, man, you can't find no fault in this man. What you want me to do with him? Huh? And so then is when they realized that they could, then they came up then. And so when he realized the plot is serious and he got one of his own people from among his group, right? From his own group, who's coming after him, right? He sought refuge. He sought protection. And they said, he went and he prayed and he begged, my Lord, let this thing pass. Take me away from it, Lord. Take it away from me. Not my will, but thy will be done. It is not my will. You know that your will always proceed over. And if it's your will that this will happen, then it will happen. But if it's not your will, then it's not going to happen. And so he put his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah, the Bible says, and Allah heard his prayer. Allah heard his cry. It doesn't mean that Allah wasn't hearing all the time. It means Allah answered. That's biblical language. He said when he said God heard, it means God answered. That doesn't mean God wasn't hearing. God hears everything. He hears and he knows everything. So when it says God heard, it's not emphasizing that God is hearing, it's emphasizing that God answered. So if God answered his prayer, then he could not have been killed by those people. If God heard or God answered his prayer when he asked for help to protect him against the cunning, the plots of these people to assassinate him by crucifixion, then, and Allah answered his prayer, as the book says, then it means that they did not get the opportunity to do it. They did not do it. That's why the Quran says, مَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُ. Allah protect us from that.
Ameen.
So the key lesson here is learning that once you call on Allah, when your situation, you call on him, you now put your dependence and trust on him to follow through, because he says he can do it. And his word is true. As Allah says, مَنْ يَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. مَنْ يَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Surah 65, ayah 3. Whoever put their trust and dependence on Allah, Allah suffices them. Allah is sufficient for them. Allah is sufficient for them. He suffices them. And so they put his trust. Yusuf alayhi salam, he put his trust and dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closes that ayah by saying, فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنْ. So Allah diverted their plot from him. إِنَّهُ, indeed, most certainly, he, Allah, who is Sami'ul Alim. He is the all-hearer, the all-knower. The all-hearer, the all-knower. He Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hears and knows everything. He hears and knows everything, because his knowledge is perfect. His knowledge is perfect past, perfect present, perfect future. Past, present, and future is the same to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us it is. For us it is. The past is the past, the present is the present, and the future is the future. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, past, present, and future is the same. This is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Past, present, and future does not exist for Allah, because he knows everything already. He knows all the past, he knows all the present, he knows the future. So they don't exist. This exists only for us. That is the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over his creation. That is the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over his creation. So not only does he hear and know everything, but he has power and control over everything. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَهُوَ قَادِرٌ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Subhanallah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and he answered his prayer, and he protected him. And the hadith, and the Kathir mentioned a hadith here. He says, from the hadith that you find is a Bukhari and Muslim. It says, the hadith of Prophet says, سَبْعَةٌ يُذِلُّكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ذِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ذِلَّ إِلَّا ذِلُّهُ. He says, there's this hadith, the hadith, authentic hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there are 7 groups of people who will be in the shade of Allah on Qiyamah, when there will be no shade other shade provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he started first with the Imam and Adil. He started with the just leader. And he went on down to the second last one, and he says, you know, he says, رجل دعته امرأة ذات منصب الجمال. He mentioned the same category of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. He says the man who a woman with beauty and status invite him to herself and he refuses. He refuses and says, Inni akhaf Allah. He refuses because he fears Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us like that.
Amen.
That's a serious one, man. This is Allah doesn't get caught down the road. May Allah protect us. Amen. May Allah protect us. Amen. And let us be among those who are in shade. Qiyamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it then occurred to them after they saw the clear proofs that they should imprison Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, they should imprison him for a while. So from this we see that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is in prison wrongfully. He didn't do anything. After they saw the evidence of Yusuf's innocence, they have evidence. I think they got a case going on now with this person in Texas or someplace the other. DNA evidence, what kind of evidence show that this man is innocent. He's not guilty of murder over there saying murder. And they still want to execute him. Right? So they saw the evidence of Yusuf. It's clear because they paid his own from her own family paid testament, and he's clear. But Allah says, despite knowing evidence of clear evidence of Yusuf's innocence, that he didn't do anything, they still decided to put him in prison for a period of time. And the scholars tell us they did this because the word now is spread all over the city. Everybody knows what's going on. All right? So they want to divert this ugly picture from themselves and from the wife of the Aziz and make it look like Yusuf really is culpable in this matter. So to divert that culpability from the wife of the Aziz to Yusuf, they know he's innocent, but they still decide to put him in jail. So that this thing can, it can blow over and they go away from that. So he become a political pawn. And he's locked up in jail. That's politics, man. That is politics. He did the job. This one is responsible, and you find many, that's one thing about politicians. They direct the dirty stuff that goes on. They're fully aware of all the stuff that's going on. Because it can't happen unless they know. It can't happen unless they know. They're the one who's directing it. You understand? They know what's happening. They tell them, But when it becomes exposed, now they stand before the cameras and they want to appear honorable. Yes, this happened on my watch. It happened on my watch, and the buck stops here. But who does go to jail? Them? No, it's always somebody else. Lock this one up here. Lock that one over there. Lock that one over there. They lock everybody except themselves. Everybody else get locked up except them. That politician, man, a very special kind of creature, politician. You know, they always somewhere escape, you know. I remember, I'm not bringing clothes off on this point. A couple of years ago, remember they had in India, when they went after Indira Gandhi, she was the Prime Minister at the time, they went after Indira Gandhi. And, you know, they charged her corruption for corruption. And the judgment went against her in the court. Right? The judgment went against her. She's found guilty. She asks, because she's a lawyer, she asks for a stay of execution. You know, before you put the judge, before you give your verdict, your punishment, before you take time, like how much you give me a year or 2 years or whatever. Before you do that, please give me a break, give me a time. So of course they deferred it for what's got not judgment, what's called it anyhow, they deferred the judgment to another time when she will come up to court now and they can sentence her or whatever it is. When they did that, Indira Gandhi went to Parliament, passed a law, right, that they cannot prosecute her, and then she locked up all them people. Story finished. Yes, that's how it works. You understand? That is how it works. So they know fully well that Yusuf ain't doing nothing. They know fully well, you know. Back to my Awal ayat, they had clear evidence, clear proof. But they still lock him up. Just to make themselves look good. They lock him up. So he goes to jail as a political prisoner. That's what you call a political prisoner. And he goes to jail just for that. Yeah, let me make it easy for us. So I think inshallah we'll stop at this point and we'll continue this in the next session. Any quick question before we go? Now.
When you said, how they say, I did this, like the worship Jesus, I did that. When you were saying, I did this, when they worked, I did that, I did this. The guy, he told me to come to the church, right? So I said, he said, it don't matter. Some Muslims said, it don't matter. I said, I'm not going there. When he was telling me about the vocal law, right? When he told me to come there, I said, I'm not going there. So now, he said, it don't matter. But I'm saying to myself, as long as you follow the way you love you. So I didn't go. I'm going to never go. When you say it's vocal law, something happened yesterday with the guy, he wanted something. When he wanted it, he said to me, he said to me, he was buying something. And now he want to use me to sell it. So when I went to the store, he ain't there. When you said vocal law, I went twice. I started feeling funny when I went to the door. He wasn't there. But when I seen him, like all he wanted was the oil. He was looking at me funny, give me the video. So I said to myself, why you keep looking at me like that? I said, so why you look? He said, I ain't looking at you. Now he seen me the other day, the elevator coming up. He got his chain in his hand. Liquid dropped, he had the chain. So he kept the chain in his hand. I'm looking at him, is that all he got? You know what he's saying? Because he ain't getting no way to that. So I said, let me go get it. And when he got it, he went get it. When you sit in the book of law, right, I fell kind of short with him. Then I didn't go back. So I looked at myself. By saying, when you say invoke Allah, sometimes we fall short,
Yeah, you gotta always invoke Allah. Always invoke Allah.
Assalamu alaikum. About invocation, supplication to ask something from Allah. When a person asks with the belief that it's going to be answered, but can the person at the back of his mind also something like, I want to put my words right, know that it will be given, Allah will give him that thing at the right time? Get my point?
Yeah, Allah will respond
yes,
to your dua.
Yeah.
All right, Allah responds to your dua. Right? And the Prophet is very clear on it. Allah will respond to your dua. And you know the Prophet, Allah said that in the Quran. Prophet ﷺ informed us in his hadith. That Allah, that's the way he says, call on Allah or invoke Allah and you are convinced of his response to you. Alright? How Allah respond to that dua is a different matter. We don't have no say. Right? We don't have no say in how Allah respond to the dua. Allah will respond to the dua according to his knowledge and his wisdom. Right? According to his knowledge and his wisdom. We just have to be convinced that he will respond. And know that he will respond. But he will respond according to his knowledge and his wisdom. So he's respond in his time. He's respond in his manner. And whatever. So this is what we have to keep that in mind. Alright? So since we don't know how Allah responds to the dua. So as according to the hadith, right? Sometimes Allah SWT give you what you need, exactly what you need at that time. And he give it to you forward, right away. Sometimes he delay so that you continue to ask. Now don't stop asking. Because you ask one time and yeah, it ain't come. Don't stop. Continue to ask. Alright? So you continue because Allah loves you to do that. And so this might be, and then he give it to you after some time. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might decide to give you something other, a substitution, because there's something that is much more needed or better for you. Because he knows you. He knows your situation. He knows your condition. He knows what you need better than you. Wallahu a'lam wa antum la ta'lamun. Right? Allah knows best and you don't know. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may give you something that is more needed to you than what you asked for. That is more beneficial to you than what you asked for. This is why it's important always that we should always acknowledge Allah's bounties on us. Because it might be that thing might come, this thing might come to you, and you didn't ask for it, it come to you, but it came to you as a result of what you've been asking for. Alright? And Allah gives you a substitution. And this works so better than what you've been asking for. It works so better than what you were asking for. You asked for that. But Allah gives you this, and this even is much more better. Right? This is better. But when we do not continue to acknowledge Allah's bounties on us, and we're only thinking about the one that's about that one we're asking for, if we don't, then we don't recognize this bounty here. Alright? That is what the other situation is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might want to give you something, increase you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala withholds that dua. He withholds it and gives it to you in the hereafter. So in the hereafter, people see they get all this extra stuff. And they know, man, they get all this extra stuff. That was the dua you've been making all the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stored up for you. And he kept it in the hereafter, so you get extra. All right? So you get all these extras that come because of these dua. So we don't know how Allah will answer the dua, right? We just know He will. Right? So we always continue to ask, and it says, you know, Malam yu'ajjal, as the Prophet says, dua Muslim, Malam yu'ajjal, just don't stick to hurry Allah up. Allah will always answer. He will answer at your time, but He will always answer on time. He will always answer on time. So, Allah, because Allah knows, that's why Allah calls it, Wallahu Sami'un, innahu Sami'un, he is a Sami', right? He is the all-hearer. Al-Alim, He is the all-knower. So He knows everything about you. He knows all the pros and cons and ins and outs and stuff like that. So He responds to you in the proper manner. In the way that is needed and best for you, He will respond. But know for sure He will respond.
Allah.
Right? Now,
Assalamu alaikum. Now, I have a supplication story. One day I was driving Idris, Big Idris, I was driving him home, so we got in Belleville and the cops pulled us over. So as soon as the cop came to the car, he said, "What are you disguising? Why the car smell like that?" So I see Idris, he going deep supplication, he starts praying real. So I said, "Officer, the last time I smoked marijuana, I went to the supermarket and I totally forgot that I was supposed to buy food. And it was when I went home, I remember." So the cop thought it was so funny, and one started laughing, and it was the stitches. And the next cop, he joined him in laughing, and we drove away. And whatever Idris was saying in supplication, the cops were in stitches to the point where they forgot why they pulled me over. we went about our business, and until this day, you know, I know it's by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever supplication Idris went into, it turned the cops into idiots, man.
Allah's answer prayer, man. Allah
What's
answers
the
prayer.
difference between supplication and invocation?
Supplication is general, where we can praise Allah, we can glorify Him, or we can ask Him for something. Invocation is that we ask Him and beg Him and beseeching. Right? So it's different. Right? We're beseeching and begging for something. But supplication covers invocation. Invocation is more particular. Supplication is more general. Time, inshallah. You can close the session. Now? You got to get them from the office. The tickets to the back. Oh yes, don't forget next Saturday is the NIA Endowment Banquet. What the NIA, what we are doing, you know, one of the things that we try to do here, that we're always forward thinking and forward looking in our building. That's what also why we continue to progress always, we plan always. I think, as I say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we always looking forward. And we decided to discuss sustainability, because one of the problems we find that with Muslims in this part of the world, not so much in the Muslim world, but in this part of the world, because people's lack of fully understanding Islamic history and how it operates, that we establish these institutions and then we struggle to maintain them. Right? We establish institutions because we don't have a lot of institutions that we have established so far. You know, just the masjid has been established and Islamic centers and schools. So far, that's all we've reached so far. Then now, we're struggling to establish clinics and stuff like that around the place. We're struggling to do that. We haven't really reached that point yet of establishing clinics and hospitals and social welfare centers and stuff like that. We haven't reached that far yet, but we establish them, we struggle to maintain them, and every you've got to go and ask. Every Jumu'ah, every once a year, we got to go beg people, could you please thing. So sustainability is an important issue. This question was answered long ago, back in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This was, I mean, we see how the Islamic development we find in history. Headed by the Prophet encouraged people to establish waqf. Waqf is the Islamic thing of endowment, right? It's Islamic position of endowment. And so the Western people borrowed this concept from the Muslims. That for us, I really don't know why we don't use our own stuff. And this, because they borrowed it and they use it. All the institutions, because before, the Muslims were the first to establish universities, and we know that. The Muslims were the first people to establish universities and schools and these kind of things, hospitals and that kind of stuff. And based on the teachings of Islam and the Prophet, they used to establish endowments to maintain those institutions for the longevity of it. So this is what they used to do. And so when the West adopted the Islamic systems, of universities and colleges and institutions and stuff like that, they adopted this from the Muslims, all right? And they adopted the whole process of endowments. They established the endowments. So you find all the universities. They say the Harvard University endowment is in the trillions. I think Harvard got the largest endowment.
And where?
Harvard University.
Oh, Harvard University.
They have the largest endowment in the world.
Oh,
Right? And then all the Ivy League schools. Why do you think they have to do all that they do? They don't depend on tuition. It's not tuition.
Yeah, I know. I'm
It's
working.
endowments.
I'm working in New Brunswick. Rutgers on everything.
Yeah.
Rutgers on everything.
Endowments. It's endowments. They have to build this new wing, do that. They pay the president 6 figures. $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year. The presidents get for those universities. $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year. They can't pay those salaries They can't pay those salaries off of tuition. They do offer endowments. So the endowment ensures the longevity of the institution and the continuity of its development. So we want to go back this, and they borrowed that from Islam. We want to go back to that. So we decided that this is what we're going to do.
So what would be
All
this?
said for a community, we can establish an endowment, and so we ask the Muslims to, inshallah, we're going to have that endowment dinner next Saturday.
What, right?
Sharp is going to be in Edison. We got the posters upstairs.
upstairs, yeah.
We got the posters upstairs. At
Yeah,
the
the
manor,
black poster.
at the manor in thing, off of Route 18, I think. Is it Route 18 in Edison? The posters upstairs, and the office has tickets. So they encourage Muslims to because it is like a sadaqah jariyah. It's like a sadaqah jariyah. You invest in it, you get benefits because inshallah we go through the details, inshallah, in the session itself, in the program itself, we will give so much more details on how it works and how it functions and stuff like that, inshallah. So we have some brothers and sisters to buy tickets and come up, inshallah.
Inshallah, they're gonna work Moab in there. They're gonna include Moab.
Moab is a separate body. Moab is a separate organization that we started. Is a separate body. We need to do that for Moab, but this is what we're doing for the Masjid here.
So no more Moab fundraiser this year.
I gave the Moab fundraising this year because of this. Yeah, we normally have an annual fundraiser in October for Moab, but once we decided that we're going to do this for the masjid, we want to put the community first. on this, and so we didn't put anything so it come clashing, so you got
Okay.
to
And we're going to have us.
so we want to have a Moav, not this kind of Moav fundraiser. We still encourage people to donate to Moav because it's benefit the community and stuff like that. But we're not having a fundraiser like this. What we normally have, the big one we usually have at the Rubber Tree. We're not going to have it this year, but we're going to have this thing for the community, which we're encouraging everybody to come because we really want to establish that endowment fund so that to ensure the longevity of the community, longevity and the continuity of development, because the community has to continue to grow. We need to develop institutions, inshallah, we need down the road, we need to establish a school, we need to establish, senior citizen facility, we need to establish stuff. Unless we have the funding to develop the stuff, we just can't everything by the time once I'm just going to ask people, could you donate? We need to have a continued sources of funding to cover these things. And WACF does that.
Well, if you cannot make the event itself, you can still.
Yes, you can still donate. You can still donate. Yeah, you can still donate. Just contact the office and say, so I can't make it to the event, but I want to be part of this. So here is my thing I'm putting in to be part of this.
Exactly.
So it becomes that is your portion of Sadaqah Jari. So Sadaqah Jari, when you die, that's the only thing one of the three things that the Prophet mentioned that will work for you after you die, is Sadaqah Jari. So work for Sadaqah Jari. That'll make it easy for us. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.